which if we can lighten it up, I don't know what has happened, seriously. But like our page load times, when I do a page speed insights, whatever it's called, went from like the 80s down to like 7.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That is, I had some of the same issues, but then I started checking my site with another speed test as well, and it's like
what's out there?
Google says how awful it is, and then these other speed tests are saying, no, it's not that bad actually.
Okay, let me clarify that right now. Okay, before anyone says anything, this is my thing, right? Because my pages are built for speed. Okay, number one. Google Page Speed Insight, the typical golden standard, right? And this is kind of the one that you want to impress. This is the Cinderella of everything. Why? Because everyone checks inside of Google, okay? So if you make Google happy, some of that might come back in your favor, all right?
Right.
Here's the deal. 3 seconds or less is the general rule. 1.7 seconds is the desired time, okay? Google, okay, so that's what we know, okay? And here's my theory, and then here's kind of what you need to keep in mind. Google acquired a company called Lighthouse, which is like a data powerhouse as far as measuring stuff. And it seems in the circles that I run in, it seems that since they did this, Google has gotten a lot more data to check against, and they've gotten a lot more stricter. All my websites scored 90s for the last year and a half. They're now scoring 70s. Okay. And nothing has changed. So it seems like Google has kind of moved the bar a little bit. They've moved the posts. Now the other website that I like to check is Pingdom. Okay. Pingdom. I think the actual.
Yeah. I just did Pingdom for ours.
Pingdom, yeah.
Yeah. I just did Pingdom, and the performance grade is a 65. The page size is 2.7, and the load time is 3.24 seconds.
Okay, so we're hanging out on the outskirts. But here's the deal, okay? So in practice, Pingdom will give you probably the most accurate results because they run several shots at a time, which is great for, okay, if you start online giving during service and everyone's looking at your website, I think it hits it 26 times or 25 times.
Did 132 requests.
There you go. And then it'll tell you kind of like where it's at on an average, okay? And that one, in my experience, will give you the most accurate load time, okay? For example, mine loads at 1.6 seconds. That's what my site loads at. But Google, because they're a little bit more strict and they have access to this lab data, they're actually looking more deeper at your code. And Pingdom does too, but Pingdom is really, for me, more of looking at how fast it loads. What Google's doing is they're looking at your code, they're looking at your layout, they're looking at things more than just, are you using big pictures? They're looking at layout, lazy loading, they're looking at different ways to optimize it, what's pulling up that's not needed to, and so they're a little bit more strict. So there's 2 sets of goalposts I believe that you should have, and I encourage others to have as well. Number one is, first, just get it under 3 seconds. And for that, I would just check Pingdom. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier of a pill to swallow, okay? Get it under 3 seconds. Once you do that, then you can go back over to page speed, and you can try to get that deep stuff that Google's seeing, like first CPU idle. I have no idea what that means, okay? How can my website load? And even Google's telling me, 1.6 seconds, your website's there. That's great. But first CPU idle is 7 seconds. I don't know what that is, right? The key is, though, is that we're trying to make Google happy, because as of last July, speed is now part of Google's algorithm, okay? It wants to serve up fast sites. So you need to get the speed down, and then once you do that, then you can start trying to make Google happy and get it to that fast 90 or plus, or at least above 50, right, is good. For that, I still have to do some research, because I said I did nothing. All my websites used to go over 90. Now they're all hitting 70, which is straight average, and it drives me nuts. The speed is the same. It's just they're checking things that I'm not sure of. So if you're worried about anything, again, number one, get it under 3 seconds. Follow Pingdom's advice, right? Compress your images. See if there's a plugin or something that can do what's called lazy loading, where it loads everything at the top first and then loads the rest of the page. Some website builders, it tries to hold it's a blank page until everything loads, and then it shows everything at once. That's not needed, right? So you want it to just, it's like when you order a meal for a big family and you're like, no, just bring it out as it's made. Don't wait and bring everything out at once. You want it to come out as it's coming. So you want the top to load and then the bottom. It's also going to check things for like minimize CSS. I think there's a plugin for that, I'm sure. So yeah, Google's gotten a little bit stricter. They've tightened the reins. I think, I don't know why. I think it's because they got access to data. That's what I would recommend. That's my thing there.
My crazy conspiracy theory on some of that is they're pushing AMP. They're pushing people to do AMP as much as possible so that it's like super light. It integrates to all their Google News and stuff like that.
Maybe
that's my crazy conspiracy theory. I know, but that's I've heard that in 3 or 4 different places now by different, people who aren't the same people. And it's just kind of sitting there and I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. Like I just did mine. My Google score for my desktop is like 65. But if I go over to Pingdom, my load time is 1.1 seconds. Mm-hmm. And if I go, there's another one that I've used a lot of that gives me a little more data. It's called GT Metrics with an X at the end.
Okay.
And it gives you page speed, Y slow, waterfall, timings, and it can do some measuring on history and stuff like that as well. It says my fully loaded time, what they're calling fully loaded time, is just under 3 seconds. So they're giving me 80% scores on both page speed and Y slow. So considering just how bulky my site is and how massive the database has to be right now, I've been trying to clean that up. I'm really happy with that. But like I said, like you're saying, my score on Google used to be 85. Yep. It's now reading 65.
Yep. Something happened. I don't know what it is. They moved the posts.
And I've been making it faster. And I've been cutting and trimming and making it, cutting the fat everywhere and getting rid of old files, and everything I do is just to get back up to 65. Mm-hmm. It's insane.
Yep.
Other than learning how to code, how do I speed my page up if I need it? I don't understand. You're saying get rid of your old files. Is that in your media file?
For me, I'm running WordPress, and I have a ton of data. Line and line and line and line and line for every post entry, for every file I have for people to download, for everything like that. The more I can make all of that empty, the less the site has to work.
Okay.
So if you don't need it, don't put it there.
Does the size of the pictures matter?
Yes. Okay. There's something I use called, I use Photoshop, and there's something I use called JPEG Mini. It was a plugin that I bought for Photoshop rather inexpensively. It was on sale from B&H one time, and I think I got it for like $19. It's usually like $99. It reduces my file sizes from in JPEGs something like 80% in some cases.
When I use Photoshop, but it's Photoshop Elements.
Yeah.
That's all I could afford. Which it works for me. For what I can do, it works. Mm-hmm. But I'll need to look at the size of these things.
Justin, would you say when you're looking at the pictures, I mean, the max size is 1920 1080, right? But really, most of your pictures should be set to the size you would see them on the screen, right?
So I don't worry about it too much. Except for the background splashes, I go bigger on those because parallax scrolling and all that. That's popular. But yeah, most pictures, unless they're going to be a huge splash image, I do 1,000 by 1,000. Usually JPEG
Now,
around 60.
I'm waiting for the pastor to give me the word so we can do our Easter video thing. And now that would take, it needs to, what if it's 4 or 5 minutes? Would it make the page longer to load?
It shouldn't, because you're going to host it on YouTube or Vimeo, and you're just going to embed it into your site. So you're not actually loading the video into your site.
Yeah.
It's just a link that's going to add a box that it's a window into YouTube.
Okay.